Hi everybody, I'm Joe Parker of the Pixel Depot. Before we get started here, I do want to say that this video is going to be different than what is normally on this channel. This is a little bit of a complaint and may turn into a bit of a rant before I'm done here, but this is something that's been bothering me for a little while, and I want to find out if this also bothers other people or if I'm just sort of, on the fringes of insanity, and it doesn't really matter to anyone but me. So one way or the other, if you agree with me or disagree with me with what I'm about to say, let me know in the comments below, and we can have a discussion about it. To give you the background of what got me started on this, a little while ago I decided that I wanted to get some tank cars for interchange service on my main layout, the Monument City Terminal Division. So the chassis system interchanges, and I model Conrail there too, and that interchanges with the Canton Railroad. The Canton Railroad in turn served Unilever in Baltimore. Lots of tank cars showed up there. So I did a little bit of research and talked to some friends on Facebook and so on to kind of find out whether some of the cars that were being offered or about to be released made sense. And to be fair, it's this car here. These are from Athearn. It's the Athearn Genesis line, and these are, to be very specific, GATC 20K tank cars. So General American Tank Car Leasing, 20,000 gallon tank cars. And these are decorated for Emery, even though it is a leasing company. And those cars, Emery decorated cars, were seen frequently at the Unilever plant in Baltimore. I did a little bit of additional checking on the build date, and the build date was pre-1984, which is when I model. So everything seemed great. Fast forward to receiving those cars, and I started to do a little more information, again, because I'm a bit of a data geek. I usually put information in my list of build date and repaint dates and things like that. And it turns out that this car was repainted sometime in the 90s. So the logo was different, the general look of the lettering and so on was different for Emery. Rendering this car useless, essentially, for my layout. Now, let me back up a second. It is not useless, obviously, but I generally strive for a pretty good sense of realism in terms of, making sure that the things that are running on my layout were really around in that period of time, because I want to try and replicate the experience as closely as possible. You're never going to replicate it perfectly, but I try to get as close as I possibly can. So I was pretty disappointed after spending quite a bit of money on these cars. I bought 4 of them, to learn that I wasn't going to be able to use them. And that got me thinking about what's the actual content of this video, which is manufacturers really ought to be telling us on the packaging what the era is that a car is appropriate for. Very few manufacturers do this in any way, shape, or form. I know that Athearn will, on their marketing materials when they're making announcements, will often show, especially for the Genesis line, will often show what era a particular car or car number is appropriate for, so that you can make an informed decision. When they get down the line to, the ready to run levels and the roundhouse, especially, where cars may be foobies, and never really existed to begin with, it's a little harder to do that, of course. And I will be the first to acknowledge that compared to when I first started modeling, the information that you can find on cars is much better than it ever used to be. You used to be lucky if it said 50-foot boxcar and had a road name on the side of the car. Now it will at least tell you, in most cases, what the manufacturer was in some cases, whether it's ACF or Pacific Car and Foundry or whatever, and a specific model that they had there, whether it be a 50-foot Berwick boxcar or whatever it happens to be. So that has improved over time, and certainly the product has improved over time. These cars, this happens to be the Genesis line, so the quality is extremely high, the detail is extremely high, the price is extremely high, to be quite frank. So to spend that kind of money and then find out that the car isn't what you thought it was or what it was supposed to be is a bit disappointing. The point is that the manufacturers have that information, or at least if they're doing their job, they have that information. To be fair, manufacturers like ExactRail on their site will show close-up photos of multiple angles of the different cars that are available. However, very rarely do they actually show the consolidated information or the build date in those photos, so you still can't really make a definitive decision based on those photos. We're in the era of the internet now, right? So brick and mortar hobby shops are fewer and farther between than they ever used to be before. So in a lot of cases, especially if you're looking for something specific, going online to purchase it is really your only option to make sure that you're actually going to get it. There are no sites at all on the commerce side of this equation that I know of that are actually providing any kind of era information to make that decision easier to make for the consumer. It's not like a brick and mortar store where you can go in, you can pick up the car, you can look at it, you can open the package, even though you're probably not supposed to, and look at those dates if you happen to be carrying a loop or whatever with you because the printing is minuscule. But you can make you can inspect the car in person to be able to make those decisions. Online, you don't have that option. Most of the sites do provide a thumbnail or a preview image, but you try to scale those up to read that information, you're never going to get it. In a lot of cases, what they're showing is the artist's rendering of the car that they get from the manufacturer, and if you try to blow that up, all you're going to get is a bunch of pixels. So not helpful in any way, shape, or form. It would be really nice if the manufacturers would provide that information so that the hobby shops could then provide that information. And the reason I say it that way is there are hundreds of hobby shops across the country and throughout the world, and for each and every single one of those shops to be spending their time to try and track down era information, build date information, repaint information for every single piece of rolling stock that comes through their door is ridiculous and would be entirely redundant for every single site to be doing that. Now, if the manufacturers are doing their job, they have that information. They've printed it on the car, so they have to know that it is that information is available. Give that information to people, to the consumer, to the hobby shop. Put it on the label so that information can be passed along, and we don't have to worry about getting cars that we're not able to use. You may say, it's your railroad, do whatever you want. And yeah, I could run it and just say, yep, I'm going to ignore the fact that it never ran. But the corollary of it's your railroad, do what you want is I want it to be accurate. And to make that information available to me ensures that I can make it accurate. It's never going to be foolproof, of course. As I mentioned earlier, there are FUBI cars out there that are paint schemes put on cars that never existed, or it's a similar car or a stand-in car or so on and so forth. In those cases, yeah, it's not going to work. But that at that point, it becomes my choice to decide whether or not I want to make that decision. When you're talking about spending $30, $40, $50, $90 on a car, I shouldn't have to worry that information is not available to me. I think that's a fair trade between the manufacturer and the consumer, especially when they have that information at that kind of a price tag to be able to provide that information to me on the label so that I can see that. And if I happen to be buying online, to allow the online stores to be able to put that into the descriptions. It would, of course, require those online shops to actually put that information in the descriptions, which may not always work, but at least having it would allow them to be able to make an honest attempt at it. I think that's all I want to say on this topic. I'll probably wrap up filming and then realize, oh yeah, I wanted to say that too. But I think I've rambled on enough here on this particular topic. So as I mentioned, if you're new to the channel and you've never seen any of my videos before, this is not typical. This is I'm all about teaching people how to do things, and I typically don't go off the handle like this and complain about things. But especially for new people, if they want to understand the different eras and so on of railroading, having that information available to them would be great. When you're first starting out, Do you know that 40-foot boxcars tended to get phased out in the early to mid 70s in favor of 50-foots when they started to come in? Do you know when wood-paneled cars started to disappear in favor of steel-paneled cars? Having that information available is not just for the insane people like me who want to make sure that everything is correct for the date that I model. It can be an educational process as well. So I guess from that standpoint, it does fit on the channel. Back to what I was saying before. If you're new to the channel, this is not usually what's on here. I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I do lots of how-to videos, and we're building this layout here that's behind me. So I go through the process of building that from the ground up and so on. I would encourage you to subscribe. I would encourage you to click on the bell so that you get notified when there's new content available. And I would encourage you to check out some of my other videos where I'm a little less angry. So if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I appreciate everyone that watches the videos and all of my subscribers as well. We'll be back soon with something that's more in line with what we usually do here. If you happen to agree with me, let me know in the comments. If you happen to disagree with me, let me know in the comments. If the manufacturers see that enough people want something like this, they'll do it, right? Getting a community together that with a singular voice, if that singular voice does in fact exist, could be useful in this particular area. So let me know in the comments what you feel. I'm Joe Parker of the Pixel Depot. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll meet me next time in the train room.